Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
State Representative Josh Miller. He is from District 66, and he knows a little bit of something about big government Republicans versus platform Republicans, don't you, Josh?
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, first-time caller. If you don't mind, could you tell me what you think the Razorbacks' chances are this weekend?
Oh, my goodness. Against the Crimson
Oh,
Tide.
wait. My bad. Wrong radio show, dude. I'm sorry.
Okay. I got you. Long-time listener, first. Maybe that phrase is popular on sports radio. I would say probably more so than talk radio, than traditional political radio, for sure.
I've always wanted to say it, Paul, and I thought this is my one chance.
This is your one chance. Hey, Josh, seriously though, what are the Razorback chances down in Tuscaloosa on Saturday?
Well, seriously, I think they are. The Razorbacks have a real opportunity here to bend the scoring curve, and maybe experience some slow growth in the Crimson Tide scoring. And I would say that the Razorbacks have about as good a chance of winning this ball game in Tuscaloosa on Saturday as the big government Republicans do of actually limiting government down in Little Rock.
Wow. So not at all. So you're giving them no chance at all. Oh, my goodness. That's a great analogy.
Well, to go, if you wanted to go Dumb and Dumber, I guess you could say there's like a 1 in 500 million chance, and
so you're saying there's a chance.
That's right.
So when you say the Hogs could try to bend the score curve, is that like when a big government Republican says we're bending the cost curve?
Exactly, and I would challenge any business person in the state of Arkansas that could be listening to us right now, and I hope you don't mind me doing this, Paul. But if anybody who is actually in business could call in and give a clear definition of exactly what it means to bend the cost curve, I would appreciate it.
But you hear that a lot. You hear that a lot down there. What does it really mean? What's the carefully crafted language behind bending the cost curve? Is it just like an excuse to allow a government program to continue to exist and waste taxpayer money?
Paul, I've been working on defining a lot of these political speak terms for my constituents and others who care to listen. And the definition that after careful research, exhaustive research, the definition that I have found for bending the cost curve is this. It means that we're spending record amounts of your money, but we don't want to come out and tell you that.
Wow. I think there was some of that in a Arkansas Democrat Gazette piece, I think it was last week, where they were talking about how the Medicaid expansion money is up. But then you start reading, the devil's kind of in the details, and they're celebrating because it hasn't increased 5%. It's only increased, like 3.4%, not the 5%. And because the task force says as long as it doesn't increase over 5%, so then they can write the headline, we're below forecast. And then that makes it think that if you just read that alone, you're going to think, oh, okay, well, we're not spending as much money. But in reality, below forecast can still mean you're spending more money than you did last year.
Well, Paul, that brings me to my next term, slow growth. Slow growth. Now, that I've defined that term as well, and that means that not as many people maybe are signing up for free programs, but they're not, in fact, shrinking. Because what I want to hear is somebody come out and tell me we're experiencing slow shrinkage. And I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing slow growth.
Yeah.
And, while I can celebrate the fact that we're not still in a state of rapid growth like we have been the last 2 or 3 years, but we're still growing. And I don't know of a Republican elected in the state of Arkansas to the legislature or any other office that ran on the ticket of continuing to grow government and reward folks for having no initiative to better their own situation.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
that's my take on that.
Josh, I love how organic our interviews go, but one of the reasons I wanted to have you on specifically was to talk about, I don't know if you've heard, but, there is another task force, not on Obamacare, but this time to try to, reform the tax code. And, at the very beginning of the first meeting for this particular tax farce, the Speaker of the House, Jeremy Gillum, said that we need to debunk the news reports and that this task force is not necessarily about recommending future tax cuts to the General Assembly. And I was like, wow, okay, well, so what is it for? It's just going to be cost shifting, and then they're going to call it a tax cut. And people say, no, we still have high hopes for it. Well, now, last week, we find out that Jim Hendren and the tax farce hired a consultant. And the guy to head up this consultant group, his name is Randy Bauer, and he is a lifelong Democrat who tweets like a liberal and who has liberal ideas. And I didn't know if you had a response to that.
Well, I would say I had been made aware of that earlier today. A very smart guy had called and told me about it, and I got to looking into it and discovered that it's true. Here's my response is this, and it's sad that this is my first response, but it's like, why should this come as a surprise? We don't have enough people in positions who are actually genuine about wanting to shrink government, that want to actually bring real tax relief on all citizens. I want all of our taxpayers to experience some tax relief, and it's not that hard. You just you've got to be willing. But I know exactly what you're saying, what they're wanting to do, and we're probably going to come out of this. I'm going to say it right now. I'll go on the record and say it right now. What the recommendation, whether it comes from this highly paid consultant or it comes from the governor's office or wherever it comes from, the recommendation is going to wind up bringing in an increase in taxes and not a decrease. Now, we will decrease the burden on some, but it's like, hey, if you decrease the amount I have to pay in income taxes, but you increase the amount I have to pay in sales tax when I go fill up my vehicle or whatever or any other kind, is it really a cut? No, I'm still paying more money to the government.
So you think that they're going to basically try to protect the government's not going to wind up getting less money out of this deal for sure. You think they're actually going to wind up getting more money, and what? But it's not going to be a true tax cut. They're not going to quit spending and then give that money back to the people.
Absolutely not. Here's the situation that the state of Arkansas is in. We cannot afford any more tax cuts. With what we're spending right now, we cannot afford another tax cut. When you're running a $5 billion machine down there, and you want to jump up and down and sing hallelujah and all this stuff, and click your heels in the air and just celebrate the fact that we finished up a fiscal year with $15 million in surplus. Wow. That's ridiculous, and that was after we had to cut the budget.
Yeah, after he had to cut
because we weren't meeting. Right after we weren't meeting projections and all this kind of stuff. So, the sad reality is there's no way we can afford a real tax cut. We can't afford less revenue until we start cutting some of our expenditures. If you're spending $100 a week on something, you need to be generating $100 a week.
Well, Josh, why don't they want to cut spending, or why? I guess in their minds, the establishment leadership, it's like it's not even possible to cut spending. Why do you think that is? What are some of the reasons?
I wish I knew. Other than I go back to, of course, with the big elephant in the room. Is always, and until it goes away, which I don't know if it will or not, but it's going to be the Medicaid expansion dollars. And we are, we've since proven that we would have been cheaper it would have been cheaper for us as a state to have just expanded traditional Medicaid services and not been buying private insurance. But yet we're still going to continue to do that. And, once you involve companies who are making hundreds of millions of dollars of profit each year, they like to donate to politicians, and they like to, offer jobs and do this other all this other stuff. And that makes it hard to, to affect change in the legislature, because we have too many people who are afraid of not getting those campaign contributions, I guess, or other stuff. The list goes on.
I don't want to. I got another question here. We're talking with State Representative Josh Miller, District 66. That includes Heber Springs. Are you calling from Heber? Is that where you're calling from?
Well, actually, I'm calling from the hilltop right above my farm, where I'm about to go deer hunt.
Oh, nice. Okay, all right.
So I'm in southern Stone County right now.
Okay, all right, southern Stone County. All right. So I don't want to, Here's my issue. I just want your honest reaction to this. Among the leadership that are Republicans, that I don't even know if they're claiming to be conservatives anymore, Josh. That's kind of why this is a tough question. But there's never a loss of credibility. And part of that is because we have a mainstream media that leaves a lot of the people in the dark. But when you look at Senator Jim Hendren, for example, who used his past credentials to say, follow me, I'll end Medicaid expansion. Still no one's called and told me that it's ended yet. We still have it. He's on record saying it was going to end it. That wasn't a true statement. And we were going to do real tax reform this last session. The governor said no. Hendren said no. And Hendren said, follow me. I'll create another task force, and we'll get real tax reform. We now find out that that's pretty much not going to happen. He's hired a lifelong Democrat to advise a red state, or a supposed red state, how to proceed with lowering taxes. We're the highest tax state around. It costs almost $8,000 per capita to run our government, when it costs $5,000 per capita to run Oklahoma or Texas or, all the states around us on average. And, those are that's a big problem. So why do none of these guys, when they fail to deliver actual limited government results, they never lose their credibility, it seems like? What's your response to that?
My response is twofold. Number one, I think that we do live in a red state. There's enough people that have gotten tired of government operating the way it has been in the past, and they have voted overwhelmingly for a change. So I think the direction that you and I are talking about, the direction that you and I would like to see things go, is wildly popular with the working men and women in the state of Arkansas. I have no doubt about that. Our problem is that you touched on it just a second ago. We don't have enough of the mainstream media that is willing to, if nothing else, just say, hey, aren't you flip-flopping on your last position? They don't do that very often. And number two is, this is a problem, and I'm not by any means, hey, listen, I'm a regular citizen person, whatever, long before I'm a legislator. So I'm talking to myself in as much as I'm talking to anybody else. But one of the other issues that we've got to have, and I think this is because there's, like I said, there's probably not enough media coverage of the actual facts, but we have a lot more people in the state of Arkansas right now who voted overwhelmingly for change. They voted for candidates all across the state that were going to change things. They voted for Donald Trump. They voted for Asa Hutchinson, thinking, hey, you know what? We don't want another 4 to 8 years of the direction Mike Beebe was leading us. And they voted for Asa Hutchinson over Mike Ross. But the vast majority of that population right now is more up in arms about Jeff Long's buyout and the contract with Brett Bielema and the poor state of the Razorback football program than they are about the poor state of the Arkansas state government.
Yeah.
And the fact that our tax dollars are being wasted on a regular basis. And, you know, I've started, when I've been speaking to folks, I've just been saying, hey, hold us accountable. I want my district to hold me accountable. If I am guilty of telling my folks one thing when I campaign and I go to Little Rock and all of a sudden my IQ jumps up, 100 points, and I now know so much more than everyone else, and I see that I was wrong to have the position that I had when I campaigned, that the people elected me in our democratic system, that's how and why they elected me was based on that message. And I go down there and I do something like that, I want my district to hold me accountable and say, hey, you know what? You might as well resign now because you're not going back.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And until we start having some of that, and again, I think it goes back to, we're regular people. I don't get up. I'm in the legislature. And I get up and I deal with it, yes, on a regular basis, but then I deal with work and I deal with, the same things that everybody else has to deal with. And it's like you don't have time to consume yourself with it like maybe you and I do.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons I do the show. I want people to listen to this show and what you're saying. Go ahead. No, you're exactly right, and that's one of the reasons I appreciate you and this show, and Conduit and all these other organizations that chip in, because this is so important. Because I think the more that folks know, just like I was in my district out and about at a couple of things over the last week or two, and I told folks about, hey, we're spending several $100,000 to hire a consultant to advise us on tax reform. And, folks are like, well, isn't that y'all's job? Yeah. And I'm like, yes, exactly. The vast majority of people, it doesn't matter how long they've been voting Republican or not, they think this is foolish. They're just not exposed to it as often as we are, and that's why the Paul Harrell program is such a great asset. Josh,
to the state of Arkansas.
I appreciate that.
Let
me give you one more question to throw at you. The news came out today. Jan Morgan has announced that she's forming an exploratory committee to run for governor to primary Asa Hutchinson. Now, you yourself, Josh, were targeted by Asa for being too conservative. He found you an opponent and you beat him. What are your thoughts on Jan Morgan announcing today?
Well, for one, let me just say I'm just very blessed to serve a great district that didn't buy the hype that was being thrown at them, and so it's not so much me. Number two, I think it's great that we've got some competition here. I've been on your program before, and I was talking about another potential candidate, and I said, that I would be happy to write him a check and sign up for his campaign today if he announced he was going to run. I still feel that way about that particular candidate, but I can assure you of one thing, that if it comes down and once the signing period is up and it's Miss Morgan and Asa Hutchinson running in the Republican primary, Miss Morgan has my full support.
Josh Miller, I appreciate you coming on the program, sir, talking about this consultant business and the news of the day. Appreciate you being a true conservative, and I appreciate the people in your district, like you said, for being able to see through, Asa's carefully crafted language and picking you because of, what you did. So I appreciate it, sir. You be safe, okay?
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul.
All righty.
Appreciate you having me.
Happy hunting. Folks, we're going to take a break. Before we do, I want to remind you